I have some great HOA stories for you today, and you're going to love that title story too. Here's our first one. Neighbor dropped her $50 on the ground in the parking lot, accused me of stealing it. The police are involved. With an update in the comments posted by Elizabeth Honey. Neighbor is a female in her 30s and accused me, 30 female, of stealing her dropped money in a parking lot where we park our cars. I pulled up to park after getting coffee this morning, and she's outside in her car. She asked me if I've seen her $50, and I say, no, I haven't, but if I found it, I'll let you know. So I go inside, give my coffee to the boyfriend, and then I took my dog out. While I was taking my dog out, she was banging on my door, and when boyfriend answered, she was saying that I stole her money and kept accusing me of stealing her money when he said that I didn't steal her money, and if I found it on the ground, I would have told him. She continued accusing me and was clearly upset. She then asked, where did I get the money for the coffee then? Like what? She thinks I don't have money to buy coffee in the morning. Just so odd all around and honestly a crazy thing to ask. Boyfriend called her a B and she called me a crackhead. Boyfriend went to apologize for calling her a B and just wanted to squash it and say that I wouldn't take anybody's money. She then slammed the door on his face and said that she was calling the police. The police came and basically asked what's going on and if I took her money. I told him no, up and down, that I didn't, and they said, okay, we're going to check the cameras. I replied, okay, great, just please check the cameras. They kept using the word, if I stole her money, and I just broke down and started crying because I felt like I was being accused for something that I didn't do because he used the word if at least 4 times. Finally, boyfriend says, listen, she said that she didn't do it. You don't need to keep saying if, and I said, please go check the tapes. So they did, and then they obviously told her. Then her husband comes home from work and finds me on my porch and again comes right up to my home and asks about the altercation that happened with his wife. I said that she accused me of stealing and he immediately wanted to talk to boyfriend and was very angry. I said that the cops were already called. I did not take her money. You guys can watch the cameras. This is over. Please stop harassing me. And at this point, I'm getting extremely upset and emotional. And he said, no, I'm the police now, whatever that's supposed to mean. I filed a harassment thing with my apartment complex because of this so that I could document some paper trail. My boyfriend's at work and I don't know what's going to happen when he gets home, but these people are crazy. I'm assuming that he's angry that boyfriend called her a B, but she was being one by the way that she was acting and he even apologized after. I am just upset. Being accused of something that I didn't do and would never do. When she told me that she lost it, I felt bad. She didn't accuse me then when she asked me, so I just really don't get it. This whole thing sucks. I needed to vent. What would you guys do now? And by the way, I live in an apartment complex. They live in the 2nd floor and we're the bottom floor. I'm nice to everybody. They blast music all day and night from their cars and porches, and I never say a word or have ever complained. Somebody makes a legal suggestion to OP, and OP replies with an update. Commenter says, you have proof. Management has proof. Have the police check with the management for that proof. Ignore these people. If they continue to harass you, call the police on them, and then tell them you're being harassed and you do not feel safe. Hugs and support your way. Sorry you had a bad day. OP updates with, the police did check the cameras and they told me that they would tell her that I called them for an update, but the sheriff never called me back. Yeah, I don't know what to do. Her husband wants to talk to boyfriend and I just really don't want it to turn sour. I have no idea what he is going to say to him or what. But he just seemed to want to talk to him like he was ticked, and I don't know what these people are capable of. I filed a harassment report and I wrote down what happened and I said that I felt harassed at the end. I mean, these people are knocking on my door, yelling at me. Basically, it's insane and calling the cops on me. Now, her boyfriend wants to get involved with mine? Just insane. I am so over it. My boyfriend is not the type to hold his tongue, but I have begged him to because I just want this to be over. Is the yearly budget a secret? Posted by Okay What the Heck. I ran for the HOA board because the relatively new association was headed off the rails in a few different ways. If there was no one close to hold people accountable and to ask the tough questions to force answers into the light of day, I could see it devolving into one of those stereotypical boards run by one guy who thinks he knows everything and most definitely does not know the meaning of leading from behind or collaboration. It's definitely my least favorite work to do, but I'm going to try and hang in there until it feels like there's health in both process and among the board members. Wishful thinking on that last one, perhaps. Anyway, this means that I'm relatively new to this type of miniature governing body and typical HOA must-dos. But what I'm not new to is an unwavering commitment to information transparency and implementing processes that achieve that. So, being relatively new to this domain and my focus on information transparency give rise to my question. Last night, there was an open meeting where the primary agenda item was to approve the budget for next year. The draft budget had not been shared with the community prior to the meeting, nor was it included in the packet that they were emailed that contained the agenda. The board president ran through that agenda item so fast it made my head spin. I'm the secretary taking notes. The manager started with a bit of an update on why there were increases, was interrupted by the president with a word salad of hand-wavy stuff, very quickly followed with, "Any questions?" Silence, because I think people were trying to process what was said, and then the motion to accept the budget, and bam, it was done. In my naivety, I figured there would be a presentation of the actual numbers later in the meeting, or that a period of community review would be announced with a way to collect feedback. But nope, no such thing. That was it. Is this normal? This is people's money, and we have a right to examine and reflect, yes? Surely being in an HOA doesn't change that, does it? OP gives more info to this comment. The board is responsible for creating and approving the budget, not the owners, so while the owners are allowed to see the budget, they have no input into what is included in the budget. Draft budgets are usually only between board members and management, and it's your responsibility as a board member to review and vote on the proposed budget. And OP replies, "Absolutely agreed on who is responsible and has influence on the budget. That wasn't my question though. It had to do with visibility into the budget at the community level and when that was required to take place, if at all. What would you do if you were in the poster's shoes?"
Unjustly fire me? Let me make you go bankrupt real quick. Posted by In The Hague. I was told to post this here, so here we go. This happened a few years ago, and it still makes me giggle with glee to this day. I'm a 34-year-old female who has always been a bit of a tomboy. I like cars and sports and reptiles. When I was 25, I wanted a career change and finally follow my dream of working in an auto repair shop as a painter, like my father always did. To start my education, I needed to already have a job at an auto repair shop as an intern. So I searched and called a lot of companies to see if they had spots. There were literally several companies that laughed at me because there's no place for a woman on the work floor. Disheartened, I tried one final company who said he'd take a chance with me. I was thrilled. I was promised lots of opportunities to learn and a steady job after graduation. I started a week later, and the first 2 weeks were awesome. I learned a lot and was promised even more opportunities. He promised I would have 2 to 3 hours a week of private time with the resident painter for practice. Soon after, though, it went downhill. The owner had bid on a contract with a large city in our country to restore underground containers. I had to sand them down, put sealant on the edges, and prepare them for painting. Tedious work, but I did it diligently. The promised practice time never happened. After a while, all I did, day in and day out, 8 hours a day, was sand down underground containers. By the end of the day, my hands and wrists were numb from the vibrations. This, by the way, is illegal. You're not allowed to sand with a pneumatic sanding machine for more than 4 hours a day in my country, as it causes severe wrist and hand issues. After several months, the contract with the city ended, and I hoped my promised practice time would come. But no, it didn't. I was given jobs that had nothing to do with my education. I was told to do jobs that a contractor should do, like put rebar in front of the windows, repair the sliding doors, repair walls, and other small things. Basically nothing to do with my desire to become a painter. After 6 months of doing literally nothing that I could count to my education, my boss called me into his office. He told me he was fed up with my attitude, that he made a mistake hiring me. I was fired on the spot. I was heartbroken and cried the whole way home. I didn't get it. I put 110% into my job, working hard, always on time, staying late if needed, and never complained. I didn't understand what happened and was pretty down for a while. However, several days later, I found out I was pregnant, which helped me to get over my downness. We'd been trying over a year, and we were ecstatic. When the time came that my final paycheck should come in, nothing happened. A week after it normally came in, I called, but was told to not complain and it would be transferred shortly. 2 weeks later, still nothing. I called again and got a very irate boss on the line, cussing at me and calling me things I will not repeat here. I was fed up and contacted my lawyer. Here comes the revenge part. In my country, there's apparently a few laws that my boss broke without me even knowing about them. First, you're not allowed to fire somebody without reasonable cause. You need to document bad behavior and give the employee a write-up. After 2 write-ups, you're allowed to terminate. My boss never did this. Unlawful termination can end in a fine, and the employee has a right to get as many monthly pays as their employment contract would have continued if the employee wasn't terminated, which would mean I had a right to another 6 months of pay. Second, you must pay the final paycheck within a week of termination. We were now going on week 4. After the first week, an employee is entitled to compensation of up to 100 euros per day of not receiving their paycheck, meaning I was now entitled to at least 2,100 euros extra pay. My lawyer wrote up a letter to my boss stating we would be pursuing my legal rights. He didn't respond. A week later, we sent another letter increasing the compensation for late payment as we went. After a month of my lawyer not getting any response, suddenly, I received my pay. No compensation, nothing, just basic pay. My lawyer recommended to go to small claims court, and so we did. Mind you, it takes about 3 months before you can appear before court. He didn't even show up in court, but he sent a statement through his lawyer saying how I was a horrible employee and blah, 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 blah. However, he had no proof whatsoever, but I did. I had my performance reports from 1 month into employment and 4 months into employment, and they were stellar. The judge saw right through my boss's BS and awarded me 6 months of pay, or 12,000 euros. 4 months of late payment compensation, and this is because he didn't pay the full amount my lawyer requested, as was my legal right, about 12,000 euros. Legal fees, now about 3,000 euros, and I was paid the same week. He was then also charged with a fine for violating employment laws. He had to pay 50,000. This resulted in the Employment Bureau, which this agency makes sure that companies comply with employment laws and so on, investigating the company. They discovered the building I worked at was unsafe. The foundation was unstable, walls were crumbling and tilting, and he was told to make repairs or they would close him down within a month. By accident, they discovered he was also cheating on his taxes, so the tax agency got involved. He got charged with embezzlement and tax evasion for both of his companies. He had to pay back all taxes he evaded, plus a 100% fine, coming to a staggering 250,000 over several years. He didn't have that kind of money, and after struggling for about 2 months, which resulted in him not paying his other employees, he went belly up. Both businesses shut down, and the building that I worked at even got demolished. 7 years later, it's still an empty plot, and if I ever feel put down by somebody, I take a short drive to that place. And it reminds me, people will sometimes get what they deserve. Man gets car crushed by not paying his repair bill. Posted by I signed up because of r/. Not my story, but my father's. It took place in the early 2000s. He's a master mechanic who can literally work on any car, foreign or domestic. He's teaching me right now, and it's an honor to learn from him. He's always run his own independent repair shop almost as long as I can remember, and he told me this story recently that just seems perfect for this sub. So this guy comes in with a pretty nice Chrysler convertible to get his transmission fixed. He had to remove the transmission, disassemble, and rebuild it. Pretty long process, but it's no problem. After a day's work, he calls the customer up, says his car is ready, and reminds him of the agreed upon price of about $1,200. The guy said he could only pay $600 then, and he'd have to get back to him on the rest. Now, this isn't out of the ordinary. Where we live, most people aren't exactly wealthy, and my dad's a nice guy. He single-handedly supported 4 kids and a wife, so we weren't exactly rich. It's not uncommon for people to pay in installments. He doesn't charge interest or fees or anything, just tries to do what's right. The guy pays half the bill, and with the promise of paying the remaining amount in a few weeks, he leaves with his car. About 2 months pass, however, and the guy hasn't paid. Hasn't even contacted my dad about any issues or to say something like he lost his job or something. So my dad calls him up and asks when he thinks he'll be able to pay the rest of the bill, and I kid you not, this is how the convo went. Dad says, "Hey, this is Austin. I was wondering when you'll be able to pay the rest of your bill." Guy says, "Oh, yeah, about that. I'm not paying it." Dad, surprised, says, "What? Is there something wrong with the car? If something went wrong, I'll take care of it." No, the car runs great. I'm just not gonna pay you." "What? Why?" "Well, I have the car now, so I don't see any reason to pay you." They went back and forth a bit before my dad realized it was pointless and decided to enact some sweet, sweet revenge. He calls up a local towing company and gives them the guy's address, license plate, and car description and tells them to tow the vehicle to the county recycling center. He then calls up the recycling center and says, "Hey, you're going to be getting a Chrysler convertible license plate X from my towing shop. When it gets there, I want you guys to crush it and recycle it." And so they do. The car was crushed and recycled. The next day, the guy shows up to my dad's business, furious, and with the state patrol. My dad explains the entire story, and the cops tell the guy that, technically, the vehicle was moved, not stolen. The recycling center received recyclable goods and not stolen property. And now, the car no longer exists, as it's been recycled, and thus was not a criminal matter, but a civil one. So, the guy sues my dad, and once again, my dad explains the entire story, and amazingly, the judge says the same thing as the troopers, and dismissed. It sounds almost unbelievable, because it just seems so illegal, but if a judge rules in his favor, it's gotta have some merit by a technicality or something. Granted, this was maybe 15 years ago, so the laws could have changed since. But dang, the guy gets his car crushed simply because he chose not to pay the remaining repair bill and wanted to take advantage of someone else's kindness.
The HOA demands that we follow their rules, but we aren't even in the HOA. Click the video on your screen so you don't miss the fallout of this one, and I'll see you there.